Hello, dear listener, welcome. Settle in, find a comfortable position, and allow your body to gently release any tension it might be holding. Tonight, as the world outside begins to quiet its bustling rhythm, we will embark on a tranquil journey into the heart of a profound spiritual practice, one that has brought deep peace and understanding to countless individuals across centuries and continents. We will explore the Vipassana movement. Vipassana, a word resonating with ancient wisdom, literally translates from Pali as insight or clear seeing. It's a practice that invites us to look deeply, to see things as they truly are, rather than as we might wish them to be, or as our habitual patterns of mind might distort them. The Vipassana movement, in its modern incarnation, represents a vibrant branch of Theravada Buddhism, specifically originating from Burma, now Myanmar. This movement isn't just about adopting a new belief system, it's about cultivating a direct, experiential understanding of reality through meditation. The core of this cultivation lies in what is often called bare insight, Sukha Vipassana. Imagine for a moment a calm, clear lake. When the surface is ruffled by winds and currents, the depths remain obscured. But as the wind stills, and the ripples subside, the water gradually becomes transparent, revealing the rocks, the plants, the very bed of the lake. Bare insight is akin to this stillness of mind. It's the practice of observing our experience without embellishment, without judgment, without clinging, and without aversion. It is simply seeing what is present, precisely as it is. This might sound simple, almost deceptively so, yet in its simplicity lies its profound power. The ultimate aim of this bare insight practice is to develop a deep, unwavering understanding of what are known in Buddhist teachings as the 3 marks of existence. These 3 marks are the very bedrock of reality as perceived through the lens of Vipassana, and they are anicca, impermanence, dukkha, suffering or dissatisfaction, and anatta, non-self. Let us gently unpack these, for they hold the key to the liberation that Vipassana promises. Anicca, impermanence *, take a moment to simply breathe. Notice the air entering your lungs, expanding your chest, and then releasing, departing. Each breath is unique, a fleeting event. Nothing, absolutely nothing, in our phenomenal world, whether it be a physical sensation, a thought, an emotion, a sound, or even a solid object, remains static. Everything is in a constant state of flux, arising, changing, and passing away. From the grand cosmic dance of stars and galaxies to the microscopic dance of atoms within our own bodies, impermanence is the defining characteristic of existence. Our minds, however, often resist this truth. We crave stability, permanence. We want cherished moments to last forever, unpleasant ones to vanish instantly. This resistance, this clinging to what is inherently impermanent, is a source of much of our suffering. Through Vipassana, we train ourselves to observe this ceaseless flow of change, not with dread, but with a growing sense of acceptance and equanimity. We watch thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky, emotions rise and fall like waves in the ocean, sensations flicker and fade like embers in a fire. As we truly see and experience anicca in the very fabric of our being, a subtle shift begins. The grip of attachment loosens, and with it, the pervasive anxiety born from the fear of loss. Scientifically, this practice can be understood as retraining our brain's predictive coding mechanisms. Instead of constantly anticipating and trying to control outcomes, which often leads to disappointment in a dynamic world, we learn to observe the unfolding present moment without resistance, thereby reducing the stress response and fostering neural pathways associated with acceptance and calm. Dukkha, suffering or dissatisfaction *, this mark of existence, is often misunderstood as simply physical pain or overt misery. However, dukkha encompasses a far broader spectrum. It refers to the inherent unsatisfactoriness, the pervasive unease, the subtle stress that permeates conditioned existence, even in moments of apparent joy. Why is this so? Because everything impermanent, everything subject to change, cannot ultimately provide lasting happiness or complete satisfaction. The joy of a delicious meal passes, the warmth of a pleasant sensation fades, even the love for another, however profound, is subject to the changes of life, illness, and ultimately, separation. The deeper insight into dukkha reveals that our suffering often stems not from external events themselves, but from our reactive patterns to them. Our aversion to pain, our craving for pleasure, our identification with fleeting experiences, these are the roots of dukkha. Vipassana teaches us to observe these reactive patterns, the subtle tightening in the body when an unpleasant sensation arises, the immediate grasping when a pleasant one appears. By observing these patterns with bare insight, without judgment, we begin to create a space between the stimulus and our reaction. In this space, freedom is born. We learn that while pain may be inevitable, suffering, in the sense of prolonged mental anguish, is often optional, a product of our own mind's resistance. This directly correlates with modern psychological concepts of cognitive diffusion, where one learns to observe thoughts and feelings without being swept away by them, recognizing them as transient mental events rather than absolute truths. Anatta, non-self *. This is perhaps the most challenging and deeply philosophical of the three marks. It does not mean that you do not exist in a conventional sense. Of course, we have a name, a history, a personality. But anatta points to the absence of a permanent, unchanging, independently existing self, or soul, at the core of our being. When we look deeply, what do we find? A collection of constantly changing physical sensations, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness itself. These are the five aggregates, or khandhas, and they are all impermanent and unsatisfactory. There is no enduring, fixed entity directing this ever-changing flow. Through Vipassana, we systematically observe these aggregates. We notice that the body is a collection of cells, ever-renewing, ever-changing. We see that feelings arise and pass. Thoughts appear and disappear. Consciousness itself is a flickering flame, illuminating one object after another. There is a continuous process, a flow, but no unchanging I overseeing it all. This insight can be profoundly liberating. The burden of maintaining and defending a fixed self dissolves. The ego's demands, its endless striving for validation and control, begin to lessen. With the understanding of anatta, compassion naturally expands, as the perceived boundary between self and other becomes less rigid, revealing our fundamental interconnectedness. Encouragement, signifying that the effort of practice yields tangible, transformative results, safeguarding future spiritual development even in this often perceived degenerated age. The Vipassana movement, as we know it today, has a rich and fascinating history, deeply interwoven with the socio-political landscape of Southeast Asia. Its widespread popularity, truly burgeoning since the 1950s, and its subsequent diffusion into Western culture from the 1970s, giving rise to the pervasive mindfulness movement, is a testament to its enduring power. But to understand its modern form, we must gently journey back in time, to its roots in the 19th century. It was during this period that Theravada Buddhism in Burma, and indeed across other traditional Buddhist lands like Thailand and Sri Lanka, found itself at a crossroads. Western modernism, with its scientific rationalism and colonial influence, presented both a challenge and an impetus for renewal. In response to this external pressure, some courageous monks and spiritual leaders sought to revitalize and restore the foundational Buddhist practice of meditation, which, ironically, had largely fallen out of regular practice within the monastic and lay communities by the 10th century. According to historical accounts, by the 10th century, Vipassana meditation was rarely practiced in the Theravada tradition. A pervasive belief had taken hold that Buddhism had degenerated, and that liberation, or full enlightenment, was no longer attainable in this era, perhaps not until the coming of the future Buddha, Maitreya. Consequently, the focus of Buddhist practice had largely shifted. The majority of Theravadins, including monks and nuns, dedicated themselves to cultivating moral behavior, meticulously preserving the Buddha's teachings, the Dharma, through textual study and recitation, and acquiring good karma through generous giving and meritorious deeds. This was a noble path, certainly, but the direct, experiential insight offered by Vipassana had largely receded. Even certain southern esoteric Buddhist practices were widespread across the Theravada world before the Vipassana movement began to emerge. The reawakening of interest in meditation began to stir in Myanmar in the 18th century, with figures like Madoi, 1728–1816, who painstakingly wrote manuals outlining Vipassana practices. This was a crucial first step, laying the groundwork for what was to come. The 19th and 20th centuries then witnessed a remarkable reinvention and simplification of meditation techniques. These new methods were carefully crafted, drawing primarily from the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's own discourse on the foundations of mindfulness, and the Visuddhimagga, a classical Theravada commentary on the path to purification, along with other ancient texts. The emphasis was squarely placed on Satipatthana, mindfulness, and the cultivation of bare insight. This revitalization was not simply an internal spiritual affair, it was deeply intertwined with the broader struggle against Western colonialism and hegemonism. The rejuvenation of Theravada traditions became a rallying point, a way to reassert traditional values, cultural identity, and spiritual autonomy in the face of foreign dominance. In a fascinating twist of fate, the very Pali scriptural materials that were used to legitimize these reforms became widely accessible precisely because of Western interest in ancient texts and the tireless work of organizations like the Pali Text Society. So, the West, in a way, inadvertently helped fuel the resurgence of the very practices that defined a countercultural movement in the East. The Theosophical Society also played a significant role. Seeking ancient wisdom in Southeast Asia, they stimulated local interest in indigenous traditions. They even established lay Buddhist organizations in Sri Lanka, offering a spiritual path independent of the traditional power structures of conventional temples and monasteries. All these factors contributed to a profound shift, from a primary focus on the recitation and preservation of texts as the main Buddhist practice in temples, to a renewed emphasis on active meditation practice. A pivotal figure in this resurgence was Ledi Sayadaw, who, building on the commentarial tradition, pioneered the popularization of Vipassana meditation for lay people. This was a radical departure, as intense meditation had traditionally been reserved primarily for monastics. Ledi Sayadaw taught both samatha, tranquility meditation, and Vipassana, but he notably stressed the practice of Satipatthana, the foundations of mindfulness, as the main means to acquire Vipassana, leading to insight into the three marks of existence, and ultimately, to the beginning of awakening and stream entry. His teachings made deep spiritual practice accessible to a wider audience, democratizing what had once been a more secluded path. This momentum was carried forward and greatly popularized in the 20th century, particularly within traditional Theravada countries, by Mahasi Sayadaw. He introduced what became known as the New Burmese Satipatthana method, a systematic and rigorous approach to Vipassana that gained immense traction. His method, with its precise instructions for noting mental and physical phenomena, offered a clear and tangible path for practitioners. The ultimate goal of this practice, as with Ledi Sayadaw's, was stream entry, with the understanding that this first stage profoundly safeguards one's future development towards full awakening, regardless of the perceived spiritual challenges of the present age. The influence of these Burmese masters soon reached beyond the traditional Theravada world, extending its gentle yet firm hand to the West. Westerners, drawn by the promise of inner peace and profound insight, traveled to Burma and other Southeast Asian countries, learning Vipassana from teachers like Mahasi Sayadaw and S.N. Goenka. Goenka, in particular, became a globally recognized figure, establishing centers worldwide where his 10-day residential courses offered an intensive, non-sectarian introduction to Vipassana. Some Western students also sought out Thai Buddhist teachers, who often held a more critical perspective on the commentarial tradition and emphasized the joint practice of both samatha, tranquility, and Vipassana, insight, as integrated components of the path. In the United States, this evolving approach has been fondly dubbed the American Vipassana, or Insight Meditation Movement. Institutions like the Insight Meditation Society, IMS, in Barre, Massachusetts, became crucial hubs for transmitting these teachings. Contemporary American Buddhist teachers such as Joseph Goldstein, Tara Brach, Gil Fronstel, Sharon Salzberg, Ruth Denison, Shinzen Young, and Jack Kornfield have played pivotal roles in adapting and disseminating these practices. What is particularly distinctive about the American Vipassana movement is its inherent capacity for synthesis. Many of these teachers, having undergone extensive training in both the strict Burmese approach and the more nuanced Thai approach, have integrated elements from other Buddhist traditions and even non-Buddhist ideas and practices. This integrative approach is born from their broader training, their personal spiritual journeys, and a critical, discerning engagement with Buddhist sources. While the New Burmese method is strictly based on the Theravada Abhidhamma, a highly analytical and systematic mapping of mind and matter, and the Visuddhimagga, Western teachers often lean more towards basing their practice on personal experience and on the Pali Suttas, the Buddha's original discourses, which they approach with a textual critical perspective, seeking to understand the core teachings directly. This blend makes the practice deeply resonant and accessible to a diverse modern audience. A fascinating and relatively recent development in the understanding of the Buddhist path, particularly among some Western non-monastic scholars, concerns the nature of jhana. Historically, jhana has often been translated and understood as a state of deep, absorbed concentration, a kind of meditative trance. However, this contemporary reinterpretation, rooted in a careful reading of the Pali Nikayas, the earliest Buddhist scriptures, suggests a different understanding. According to this view, jhana is not primarily a form of rigid concentration meditation that shuts out the world, but rather a training in heightened awareness and profound equanimity. Imagine, instead of narrowing your focus to a single point, you expand your awareness, becoming deeply attuned to the entire field of your experience, both internal and external, yet remaining completely undisturbed, utterly balanced. This is a state where the mind is exquisitely clear, exquisitely present, yet free from the pull of craving or aversion, free from the restless agitation that typically defines our mental landscape. This re-understanding positions jhana not as an isolated meditative technique, but as the culmination of the entire Buddhist path, representing a profound liberation of the mind through expansive, choiceless awareness and unshakable inner peace. It suggests that true meditation is not about forcing the mind into a concentrated state, but about allowing it to naturally settle into a vast, open, and accepting awareness. This perspective aligns beautifully with the Vipassana emphasis on insight and clear seeing, where the goal is to perceive reality without distortion, rather than to merely suppress mental activity. In essence, the Vipassana movement, from its ancient roots to its modern manifestations, offers a gentle yet powerful invitation to wake up to the present moment. It encourages us to cultivate a profound intimacy with our own experience, the fleeting sensations, the arising thoughts, the ebb and flow of emotions. By patiently observing these phenomena with bare insight, we begin to dismantle the habitual patterns of mind that perpetuate suffering. We learn to let go of our relentless striving for permanence in an impermanent world, our resistance to the inherent dissatisfactions of life, and our tenacious clinging to a fixed sense of self. This practice is not about becoming someone else, but about remembering who we truly are beneath the layers of conditioning and societal expectations. It's about realizing the deep wellspring of peace and clarity that resides within each of us, waiting to be uncovered. And as this insight deepens, it doesn't just transform our individual lives. It ripples outwards, influencing our relationships, our communities, and our understanding of our place in the interconnected web of existence. As we conclude this exploration, allow these insights to gently settle within you. There is no need to grasp them, no need to analyze them further tonight. Simply allow the idea of bare insight, of seeing things as they are, to resonate softly in your mind. May the quiet understanding of impermanence bring a sense of liberation. May the wisdom of non-suffering cultivate a deeper compassion for yourself and others. And may the insight into non-self gently dissolve the burdens of the ego, leaving you with a profound sense of ease and interconnectedness. Rest now, dear listener. Rest deeply, and may your sleep be filled with peace and quietude.